Hey everyone, it's Jaeyoung here, and welcome to the Overwatch patch 1.37 overview. Apologies for the slight dip in quality for this video because I'm in the process of moving across the world. In fact, depending on when this patch comes out, I'll either be safely moved across the world already or waiting to board a plane. Whatever, let's get to it.
Oh, this is my jam!
Our newest support hero Baptiste has received 2 buffs this patch. The first is an increase to his healing grenade ammo capacity up from 10 to 12. So this aspect of his kit was pretty similar to Ana in the early days of the game before she herself received an ammo capacity buff, which mostly meant that there was a lot of reloading involved. Baptiste can already unload a ton of semi-burst healing in a small radius, which, coupled with his immortality field, made him the perfect linchpin to the recent rise of bunker comps on certain maps. A 20% buff to his healing ammo capacity won't be grossly overwhelming, but players will definitely feel the added quality of life. The second buff is to his Amplification Matrix, increasing its duration from 8 to 10 seconds. Okay, I'm not really sure why this change was needed, other than it adding a 2-second window of time for your team to be aware of how the Matrix is placed so they can reposition themselves and make use of it. Compositions that are already most likely in position to make use of it from the start, such as Bunker, now have an added 2 seconds of being disgustingly oppressive. As for other more spread out compositions, especially in regards to ladder, where communication is nothing compared to organized teams, it's pretty much just 2 extra seconds to figure out where the Matrix is. Speaking of Matrix, D.Va has received a pretty big nerf to hers, with its length being reduced from 15 meters to 10 meters. Additionally, it has also received a visual update, making it much easier to spot out than before. Overwatch is already such a visually cluttered game that it can be pretty easy to miss the faint line of an enemy D.Va's Matrix waiting to eat up your delicious ultimate. So anyone who has been watching me for a while knows how I feel about D.Va in that she is, was, and probably still will be one of the best heroes in the game, which is why I think nerfing the most powerful ability in her kit is a good way to go about tuning her down. In addition to the cooldown changes her Matrix has received, it makes the ability way weaker than what it used to be during its glory days. Now, I don't think this change will necessarily make her bad because she's still got her boosters, her missile burst damage, and her ultimate, but players will definitely have to rethink how they decide to use Matrix from now on, because even though 5 meters doesn't seem that long, trust me, it kind of is. And while we're on the topic of rethinking playstyles, this next buff is definitely an appropriate one to talk about. Oh boy. McCree's primary fire has received a pretty big buff, reducing the recovery needed between shots from half a second to 0.4 seconds. Okay, straight up, if you think a 0.1 second change doesn't seem like anything at all, you clearly haven't had a chance to try out the new fire rate. The difference in firing speed is kind of staggering, like something out of a custom game. So you know how it can be kind of easy to whiff the flashbang double hit shot on other heroes before they start moving again? Well, this buff kind of gets rid of that problem. There is, however, a slight drawback to this buff. Because the fire rate change is so drastic, it might take a while for players to reaccustom themselves to the new rhythm of playing McCree. Years of muscle memory playing the cowboy just flushed away to make way for something new. I mean, it just feels kind of weird, like when Roadhog had his scrap gun changed, but somehow even weirder. But yeah, this buff is, it's pretty disgusting, all things considered. So you're still gonna be shooting into barriers and D.Va's Matrix, but overall it's really disgusting. Moving on to a more reasonable buff, Orisa's reload is no longer interrupted when deploying her protective barrier. This is a really nice quality of life buff that gives players slightly more action uptime instead of waiting an extra 15 years for a reload that was interrupted. So similar to how Adaptive Shield no longer makes Hammond come out of roll mode, this change removes a significant point of clunkiness from playing Orisa. There's been a bit of a rise lately on ladder of the number of Orisa players, probably due to the other recent buffs she received of not being as slowed down while firing. So there's definitely a few happy players out there right now. So with both Orisa and Baptiste receiving some nice buffs this patch, in addition to D.Va's nerf, it's clear that there is a push to make bunker compositions more viable at the higher levels of ladder and even pro play. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. Because if I have to watch an entire Overwatch League season of GOATs, I'm gonna lose my Symmetra's teleporter interact range has been increased from 1 meter to 1.5 meters. Nothing much to say about this except it being a good quality of life change. The frequency of putting down a teleporter but not being able to properly interact with it as expected is pretty significant, so this will help get rid of that annoyance. Our last hero change this patch is a nerf to Torbjörn's Rivet Gun secondary fire, which is his shotgun. The damage per pellet has been reduced from 12.5 to 10.5. This makes the total potential damage of a shot be 105, down from the previous 125. Okay, since he's such a map-dependent hero, I'm going to discuss this nerf in the context of him playing on a map that's more viable for Torbjörn's playstyle. His shotgun's damage was definitely not oppressive at all by itself. Like any other shotgun hero at an average medium range, the damage dealt is alright. It's when you let them close the gap and approach you that they are of course extremely lethal. But when that happens, it's either a mistake on your part or a job well done by them outplaying you. so it's all fair and balanced. But it's really when coupled with his overload that TORBJÖRN's shotgun becomes kind of obnoxious. The increased fire rate helped a bunch, but the added speed bonus to chase down targets really added to the lethal power of the gun. Having said that, I'd rather Blizzard look at slightly tuning down the fire rate bonus from overload rather than just nerfing his base damage. Anyway, that's it for hero changes. Let's talk about some map changes. Whether you call it Assault, 2CP, or oh my gosh, I hate this map, it's pretty universally agreed upon that the mode has its fair share of haters. Thanks, Paris. But the haters will be happy to hear that their time spent playing Assault maps has been permanently reduced. The time awarded for capturing the first point on all Assault maps has been reduced from 4 minutes to 3 minutes. Additionally, upon losing the first point, any defenders that are dead or die shortly after will have a maximum respawn of 3.5 seconds. So this is an interesting and, in my opinion, a great change that heavily nerfs the ability for attackers to snowball defenders following a poor reset on the first point. Sure, it's a deliberate fix for what is essentially a mistake by defenders for not resetting fast enough or lingering too long after a lost point. But hey, at least it reduces the likelihood of losing a round and the enemy team having the 6-minute time bank and your team giving up. And at long last, Overwatch finally has replays! Coincidentally, it's been almost a year since I first released my Overwatch replay concept video, and in a way I like to think I contributed to this. Just kidding, probably not at all. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and just a heads up that since I'll be settling into pretty much a new life in a new place, I won't have my usual editing setup as I had to leave my desktop behind. But I will try my best to keep the quality of future videos up to my usual standard. So that's it from me. Take care everyone.